evening and welcome to Read with Chide. This is day 71, and yes, we are moving right along. Um, Thank you for joining me this evening. I hope you had a lovely day. Do well to share the link with friends and loved ones. Let them join us as we read the Bible together. Today we are reading Deuteronomy chapters 16, 17, 18, and Mark chapter 13. Um, we're quickly moving to the end of the book of Deuteronomy, and that will bring us to the end of the Pentateuch, and then we can move on to Joshua. Yes. Hi, who's I can see someone has joined. Please drop a comment. Let's know who it is, and as we go ahead to read the Bible together, do well to drop your thoughts, comments, questions, all of that as we study together. I'll just go right ahead into it and start. Like I said, tonight we are reading Deuteronomy 16, 17, 18, as well as Mark 13. So, Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 1. Now, this is Moses still giving instructions to them as they are entering into the promised land. It says, observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib, the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover unto the Lord thy God of the flock and the herd in the place which the Lord shall choose to place his name there. Thou shalt eat no living bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, even this bread of affliction, for thou camest forth out of the land of Egypt in haste, that thou mayest remember the day when thou came forth out of the land of Egypt all the days of thy life. And there shall be no living bread seen with thee in all thy coasts 7 days, neither shall there be anything of the flesh which thou sacrifice the first day at even remain all night until the next morning. So whatever they sacrifice that night of the Passover has to be finished that same night. Verse 5, thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates which the Lord thy God giveth thee, but at the place which the Lord thy God shall choose to place his name in. There thou shalt sacrifice the Passover at even at the going down of the sun, at the season that thou camest forth out of Egypt. And thou shalt roast and eat it in the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, and thou shalt turn in the morning and go unto thy tents. 6 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day shall be a solemn assembly to the Lord thy God. Thou shalt do no work therein. 7 weeks thou shalt number unto thee. Begin to number the 7 weeks from such time as thou beginnest to put the sickle to the corn, and thou shalt keep this feast of weeks unto the Lord thy God with a tribute of a freewill offering of thine hand, which thou shalt give unto the Lord thy God, according as the Lord thy God hath blessed thee. And thou shalt rejoice before the Lord thy God, thou and all thy sons and thy daughters and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levites that is within thy gates, and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow that are among you, in the place which the Lord thy God hath chosen to place his name there. And thou shalt remember that thou was a bondman in Egypt, and thou shalt observe and do these statutes. Thou shalt observe the Feast of Tabernacles 7 days after that thou hast gathered in thy corn and thy wine, and thou shalt rejoice in thy feast, thou and thy sons and thy daughters and thy manservant and thy maidservant and the Levite and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow and that are within thy gates. 7 days shalt thou keep a solemn feast unto the Lord thy God in the place which the Lord shall choose, because the Lord thy God shall bless thee in all thine increase and in all the works of thine hands. Therefore thou shalt surely rejoice. 3 times in a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread and in the feast of weeks and in the feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Every man shall give as he is able, according to the blessing of the Lord thy God, which he hath given thee. Verse 18, judges and officers shalt thou make thee in all thy gates, which the Lord thy God giveth thee, throughout thy tribes, and they shall judge the people with just judgment. Thou shalt not wrest judgment, thou shalt not respect persons, neither take a gift, for a gift doth blind the eyes of the wise and pervert the words of the righteous. Thou which that which is altogether just shall thou follow, and that thou mayest live and inherit the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Neither shalt thou set thee up any image which the Lord thy God hated. Deuteronomy chapter 17, verse 1. Thou shalt not sacrifice unto the Lord thy God any bullock or sheep wherein is blemish, or any evil favoredness, for that is an abomination unto the Lord thy God. If there be found among you within any of thy gates, which the Lord thy God give thee, man or woman, that hath wrought wickedness in the sight of the Lord thy God in transgressing his covenant, and hath gone and served other gods, and worshipped them, either the sun or the moon, or any of the hosts of heaven which I have not commanded, and it be told thee, and thou heard of it, and inquire diligently, and behold, it be true, and the thing certain that such abomination is wrought in Israel, then shalt thou bring forth that man or woman which hath committed that wicked thing unto thy gate, even that man or that woman, and shall stone them with stones until they die. At the mouth of two witnesses or three witnesses shall he that is worthy of death be put to death. But at the mouth of one witness he shall not be put to death. So if he's accused of something that requires death as a penalty, there would need to be two or three witnesses. And if there are two or three witnesses that say yes, he did this thing and is deserving of death, then he'll be put to death. But if there is one witness that says it's a lie, he didn't do it, for the sake of that one witness, he will not be put to death. Verse 7, the hands of the witnesses shall be first upon him to put him to death, and afterward the hands of all the people. So shall thou put the evil away from among you. So if you are witnessing that this person indeed did this thing, then you must be ready to be the first to stone him, right? Verse 8, if there arise a matter too hard for the. Before I continue, I want to say I thank God that we are not in the days of the Israelites. I thank God that we are not living by the laws that they live by. I thank God that we have Jesus. If there arise a matter too hard for thee in judgment between blood and blood, between plea and plea, and between stroke and stroke, being matters of controversy within thy gates, then thou shalt arise and get thee up into the place which the Lord thy God shall choose, and thou shalt come unto the priests, the Levites, and unto the judge that shall be in those days, and inquire, and they shall show thee, and they shall show thee the sentence of judgment. And thou shalt do according to the sentence which they of that place which the Lord shall choose shall show thee. And thou shalt observe to do according to all that they inform thee, according to the sentence of the law which they shall teach thee, and according to the judgment which they shall tell thee. Thou shalt do according to the judgment that they shall tell thee, thou shalt do. Thou shalt not decline from the sentence which they shall show thee to the right hand or to the left. And the man that will do presumptuously and will not hearken unto the priests and that standeth to minister there before the Lord thy God, or unto the judge, even that man shall die, and thou shalt put away the evil from Israel. And all the people shall hear and fear, and do no more presumptuously. When thou art come unto the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and shall say, I will set a king over me, like as all the nations that are about me. Now you can see that God knew ahead of time what they were going to do, because eventually, truly, when they got into the land, eventually they said, oh, we want a king. All the lands around us, they have kings. We want a king for ourselves. Now, this is God before they entered the promised land, saying it that when thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, and shall possess it, and shall dwell therein, and thou shalt say, I will set a king over me, like us, all the nations that are about me. Thou shalt in any wise set him king over thee, whom the Lord thy God shall choose. One from among thy brethren shalt thou set king over thee. Thou mayest not set a stranger over thee, which is not thy brother, but he shall not multiply horses to himself, nor cause the people to return to Egypt, to the end that he should multiply horses. For as much as the Lord hath said unto you, ye shall henceforth return no more that way. Neither shall he multiply wives to himself, that his heart turn not away, neither shall he greatly multiply to himself silver and gold. And it shall be when he sitteth upon the throne of his king, that of his kingdom, that he shall write him a copy of this law in a book, out of that which is before the priests and the Levites, and it shall be with him, and he shall read therein all the days of his life, and that he may learn to fear the Lord thy God, the Lord his God, to keep all the words of this law and these statutes to do them, that his heart be not lifted up above his brethren, and that he turn not aside from the commandment to the right hand or to the left hand, to the end that he may prolong his days in his kingdom, he and his children in the midst of Israel. Chapter 18, verse 1. The priests, the Levites, and all the tribes of Levi shall have no part nor inheritance with Israel. They shall eat the offerings of the Lord made by fire, and his inheritance. Therefore shall they have no inheritance among their brethren. The Lord is their inheritance, as he hath said unto them. And this shall be the priest's due from the people, from them that offer a sacrifice, whether it be an ox or sheep, and they shall give unto the priest the shoulder and the two cheeks and the maw, the first fruits also of the corn, of thy wine, and of thine oil, and the first of the fleece of thy sheep shalt thou give him. For the Lord thy God hath chosen him out of all thy tribes to stand to minister in the name of the Lord, him and his sons forever. And if a Levite come from any of thy gates out of all Israel where he sojourned, and come with all the desire of his mind unto the place which the Lord shall choose, and he shall minister in the name of the Lord his God, as all his brethren the Levites do, which stand there before the Lord. They shall have like portions to eat, beside that which cometh of the sale of his patrimony. When thou art come into the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee, thou shalt not learn to do after the abomination of these nations. There shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or his daughter to pass through the fire. This is a sacrifice that these people that were living in the land used to do. Human sacrifice. They used to sacrifice their children to their gods. There shall be not found among you anyone that maketh his son or daughter to pass through the fire, or that useth divination, or an observer of time, or an enchanter, or a witch. O ye horoscope people, what do they call it now? All these Virgo, Pisces thing. Um, I forget. Verse 11, or a charmer, or a consulter with familiar spirits, or a wizard, or a necromancer. For all that do these things are an abomination unto the Lord, and because of these abominations, the Lord thy God doth drive them out from before thee. Thou shalt be perfect with the Lord thy God, for these nations which thou shalt possess hearkened unto observers of time, and unto the diviners. But as for thee, the Lord thy God hath not suffered thee to do so. The Lord thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet from the midst of thee, of thy brethren like unto me. Unto him he shall hearken, according to all that thou desirest of the Lord thy God in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, Let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, neither let me see his great fire any more, that I die not. And the Lord said unto me, They have well spoken that which they have spoken. I will raise them up a prophet from among their brethren, like unto thee, and will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak unto them all that I shall command him. And it shall come to pass that whosoever will not hearken unto my words, which he shall speak in my name, I will require it of him. For the prophet which shall presume to speak a word in my name, which I have not commanded him to speak, or that shall speak in the name of other gods, even that prophet shall die. And if thou say in thine heart, How shall we know the word which the Lord hath spoken? When a prophet speaketh in the name of the Lord, if the thing follow not, nor come to pass, that is the thing which the Lord hath not spoken, or the prophet hath spoken it presumptuously, thou shalt not be afraid of him. Now we move to Mark chapter 13. We are done with Old Testament for the day. Moving on quickly to New Testament. Mark chapter 13, verse 1. And as he went out of the temple, one of his disciples saith unto him, Master. Now this is Jesus and his disciples, right? One of his disciples said unto him, Master, see, what manner of stones that and what building are here? And Jesus answering said unto him, seest thou these great buildings? There shall not be left one stone on top of another that shall not be thrown down. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives over against the temple, Peter and James and John and Andrew asked him privately, tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign when all these things shall be fulfilled? And Jesus answering began to say, take heed lest any man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. And when ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars, be ye not troubled, for such things must needs be, but the end shall not be yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be earthquakes in divers places, and there shall be famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrows. But take heed to yourselves, for they shall deliver you up to councils, and in the synagogues ye shall be beaten, and ye shall be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony against them. And the Lord must first be published among all nations. But when they shall lead you and deliver you up, take no thought beforehand what ye shall speak, neither do ye premeditate. For whatsoever ye shall be given to you in that hour, that speak ye. For it is not ye that speak, but the Holy Ghost. Now, I want to quickly say, there are people who have misinterpreted what Jesus was saying here to say that as a preacher, you shouldn't, yeah, funny as it sounds, that as a preacher, you shouldn't prepare a sermon, you shouldn't prepare what you should preach. That once you're in front of the people and open your mouth, God will give you what to say, and that is what you should say to the people. So, they will come up to the congregation without prior plan for what they want to talk about, and then just start saying, the Spirit leads. But if you remember, after Jesus ascended, one quick example we have of this is Stephen, right? As he was persecuted, and they brought him before the judges and all, and he opened his mouth and spoke in that hour, and spoke inspired by God. I see Jesus seated on the right hand of God. That is what Jesus was talking about here, not that you should not prepare to preach. Excuse me. Verse 12. Now the brother shall betray the brother to death, and the father the son, and children shall rise up against their parents and shall cause them to be put to death. This is him still talking about the signs of the last days. And ye shall be hated of all men for my name's sake, but he that shall endure until the end, the same shall be saved. For when ye shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet rather, standing where it ought not, let him that readeth understand. Then let them that be in Judea flee to the mountains. I think it's poetic, right? That he was talking specifically about Daniel, and then he says, let him that readeth understand. Because if you remember, in the book of Daniel, it says Daniel understood through books. So it's poetic to be talking about the prophet Daniel and then say, let him that readeth understand. Verse 15, and let him that is on the housetop not go down into the house, neither enter therein to take anything out of his house. And let him that is in the field not turn back again for to take up his garment. But woe to them that are with child, and to them that give suck in those days. And pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, for in those days shall be affliction, such as was not from the beginning of the creation, which God created unto this time, neither shall be. And except that the Lord had shortened those days, no flesh should be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he hath chosen, he hath shortened the days. Now, I want to say something that pops in my head when I read this. You know how Jesus said it himself that nobody knows when that day will be, the day that he will come back for us. Nobody knows the time or the hour. And of course, we believe him. But then, in your head, it just feels like, oh, Jesus should have some kind of information now. He's Jesus. But then here he is saying that pray that the time that this thing will happen will not be in the winter. So he really, only God really does know the time and the hour. No one else knows. Anyway, verse 22. Okay, verse 21. And then, if any man shall say unto you, lo, there is Christ, or lo, he is, believe him not. For false Christs and false prophets shall rise and shall show signs and wonders to seduce, if it were possible, even the elect. But take ye heed, behold, I have foretold you all these things. But in those days after that tribulation, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in the heaven shall be shaken. And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then shall he send his angels, and shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. Now learn a parable of the fig tree. When her branch is yet tender and putteth forth leaves, ye know the summer is near. So ye in like manner, when ye shall see these things come to pass, know that it is nigh, even at the doors. Verily I say unto you that this generation shall not pass till all these things be done. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and that hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels which are in heaven, neither the Son, but the Father. Take heed, watch and pray, for ye know not when the time is. For the Son of Man is as a man taking a far journey, who left his house and gave authority to his servants and to every man his work, and commanded the porter to watch. Watch ye therefore, for ye know not when the master of the house cometh, at even or at midnight or at the cock crowing or in the morning, lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. And what I say to unto you, I say unto all, watch. So what Jesus was saying to the disciples, he was saying to all of us who believe, watch. More than ever, this is the time to preach the gospel, to get as many people as possible saved. You are from a family that has some Muslims, some Christians, some people who do not believe, some Christmas. You know, charity begins at home, as they say. Get your family saved. You love them, don't you? Get them saved. Ensure that when Jesus comes, they're not left behind. You can help ensure that. And do the same for everybody you come across who's not saved. Take every opportunity you can to preach the gospel. Yeah, and that's it from me for this evening. Thank you for joining me to read the Bible. Do well to join me again tomorrow as we continue reading the Bible. Tomorrow we shall be reading day 72 of our Bible reading plan. Yeah, do well to ensure you are subscribed. If you are watching this as a replay, you didn't join the live, do well to drop your comments, your thoughts, and questions, whatever you have in mind. And let's study the Bible together. Have a lovely, lovely evening. Good night.